Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to part 2 of Direwolf20's Mod Spotlight on Psi. I am making minor changes to my spell that I made last episode about entity positioning and all that good stuff. So remember last episode we did some cool stuff where we were talking about how to do things, and one of the most important things about leveling up is making sure that you use the correct operator. So when I was demonstrating operators, for simplicity's sake, I used operator random entity, which only needs an entity list to choose from, but I didn't use operator closest point, so I did not level up at the end of the last Spotlight episode. So I should be leveling up now. Boom, because I just used operator closest to point. Cool. So operator closest to point in place of the random entity is pretty cool. Basically, it will let you choose a point in the world, and the closest item to that, instead of a random item, is the one that will be affected. And you can see I just ran this connector over to the entity position of the caster. Nice and easy. But for now, we're going to clear this page out. I did say that I'm going to work towards showing you guys a proper way to make a magnet spell, but instead of doing that right away, because we need some more advanced stuff, we're going to proceed through the Mod Spotlight, and hopefully by the end of the Mod Spotlight, we will have the correct spells and abilities to show that to you. Cool? Definitely cool. So I think we can quickly proceed through some things so that we can easily get to the next interesting bit. So numbers is the next one that I'm going to go with. Numbers allow you to do some addition and cool stuff, right? So if we want to quickly level up through this skill, it's actually really easy. I can use the debug trick. Now you might notice that I've got 2 pages worth of stuff here. Up here you can start typing, and if I just type in TR like trick, we'll see pretty much all the tricks available. Nice and cool, right? So my target will be, again, selector, caster. And my number, in this case, I'm going to do the addition, because that's what I need, right? So let's see, where is that addition guy? I did choose this, right? Yeah, operator sum, it's called. Okay, so we could do operator, for example, and you can see all the different operators here. I'm going to do operator sum, and you can see that this requires 2 numbers and optionally a 3rd number. So again, because we're doing the debug function, this should be really easy for anybody who understands some pretty basic math. So we'll do 2 and 3, and then we will name this test, and number A and number B. Cool? Nice. So let's put our gun in here. We'll do a new test. And this should level us up once again. So that was an easy level to go through. Ta-da! Notice that I got the number 5 on the bottom left because it's 2 plus 3 is 5. Now I mentioned that I'm going to skip vectors. I want to show you guys a lot of the features that the mod is capable of. Vectors are a complex mechanic, and a lot of the vector math that's listed here requires some detailed explanation. So my decision that I've made for Spotlight Part 2 is to show you all the cool stuff that the mod has available, and Spotlight Part 3 will be the advanced vector stuff that will show you guys some of the really cool and complex spells you can make. However, knowing that you'll need to understand vectors a little bit, so I wanted to focus on, like, here's what the mod can do and the cool stuff in it, and then, all right, I've got the basics down, show me some advanced stuff, Direwolf. That's going to be in part 3. So we'll skip vectors for now, but just for my own use, I'm going to go ahead and just get through this guy. All right, guys, I just got level 8, and I'm going to go ahead and show you alternative casting as the next object. This is cool because it gives us access to a new type of thing called a selector focal point, which can be used with some of the different types of spell bullets. So in the past, the only selectors that we've had so far were the selector caster and then the nearby animals, entities, and all that stuff. So we could select things that were already existing in the world. Now we can create a focal point. Well, let's give it a try. I'm going to make a spell called Explode. Now, we've already seen how to explode a block at a distance, right? Boom. Notice that it explodes the moment I right-click. Boom, instantly exploding, right? Let's take a look at how this works. So if we wanted to, we could choose Entity Position. So remember when I did Entity Position for the Explode trick in Part 1, and I chose myself as the selector, right? It exploded right on me. But instead, I'm going to choose the focal point. Okay, and it's going to be the position of the focal point of the spell, and then all we got to do is give it a nice number, and we'll call it Boom V2. Cool. So there we go, Boom V2. Nice. Now, in order for us to do this, we're going to need a new type of bullet. And that bullet is Projectile Spell Bullet. So Projectile Spell Bullets, instead of normal spell bullets, will shoot a projectile out, and wherever the projectile hits is the focal point of the spell. Nice? Definitely nice. So let's take out Boom, and we'll put in Boom V2, and then we'll give it a try. You ready? Nice. See how it shot a projectile? Very cool. So we don't have to do the vector stuff for exploding spells anymore, which is awesome. That is pretty neat. So projectile spells, different than the regular spell bullets. There's other spell bullets as well, including Loop Cast, Circle, and Grenade. Some things we'll check out soon. So I've decided that that moment will come now. I want to show you the Grenade spell bullet. This works very similar to Projectile, so we're going to remove the Projectile type, we will insert the Grenade type, and we will give this a try. So this one, Grenade, will throw a projectile that's affected by gravity, and then it'll explode after about 30 seconds. Cool. That is awesome. And remember, this will cast whatever spell you tell it to cast, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an explosion. It can be pretty much anything, including entity motions and all the other cool stuff that we're about to see in the rest of this spotlight. The next projectile type is the Loop Cast spell bullet, and basically what this does is it will continuously cast the spell on you, the player, as long as you hold your CAD. Got it? So pretty much it'll keep casting over and over. So let's try this out. We're going to put the Boom V2 in here as a loop cast. And what this should do is, because the focal point is me, the player, it's going to continuously cast on me, the player, as long as I hold the CAD in my hand. Let's see. Whoops. Overflowed with psionic energy. Now the last spell to tell you about is the Circle bullet type. And what that does is cast a spell 20 times on the block that you target, basically. And it uses a lot more psi energy. So rather than showing you that right now, I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the spotlight and check out what's next for us, which is Blockworks. Blockworks is the way to manipulate, you guessed it, blocks. So you've got the ability to break a block in sequence, or get this entity's look vector. You've also got vector axis raycast. Like I said, we'll talk about the vector stuff a little bit later. But you can either do, the main ones here are break block, which breaks a block given an entity position, or it can break a block in sequence, which you need to give it a position vector and a target vector. So basically, you know, if you want to break a bunch of blocks in a row, you can do that, right? And the same for place block, position vector and position and target vector for the block sequence one. So let's learn it and give it a try. So the first spell I want to try out is Break Block Sequence. Is that the one? Yes, that's the one I need to do to level up. So let's give it a shot, shall we? We're going to create a spell that will break the block that we're looking at. In addition to that, we want to break, let's say, 4 blocks above it. Should be pretty easy, right? So first, we need to give this guy a position. So that position is going to be very much like the explode trick that we did, which will be a vector raycast. Which, remember, you know, jump back to my other video on that if you want to see more about that. So operator vector raycast, starting at the entity position of the player, and ending at the entity look of the player. Cool. And that's the position that we want to start breaking at. Now the target position, where we want to break to, this also needs to be a vector. And I'm going to show you guys how to create a custom vector here, and that is one that we kind of skipped over, but it's vector construct. This is you just give it a set of numbers, x, y, z coordinates, and it will construct it from there, right? So what I'm going to do is choose that. Now the y position that you're going to be going on is the up and down, as we know, right? Y is up and down. See how Y is changing here? So I'm going to say we don't want to affect X and Z at all. So we'll just do X and Z and Y. Let's do it like this, right? X and Z can be 0, and Y we will make 4, okay? And that should be pretty cool. And then the target is down. Now, we also have to give this guy a max constant, so let's go ahead and just do a constant of 4 here, and we will say your max is that guy. Neat. Now I think all we have to do is name it. So let's say break 4 above. Cool. So let's see if I did this right, and then we're going to give it a shot. Okay. So let's place down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks. And if I'm right, when I right click on this, with my CAD, with the correct spell focused, nice, look at that. We broke 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. How cool is that, right? So let's just recap how that spell works. We're saying that we're breaking a block sequence. The position that we start with is the block I'm looking at, which is the vector ray cast like we saw in the explode spell in part 1, a combination of my position and the block I'm looking at, both focused on the caster. Then the target, basically the direction and how far we want to go, is the vector that is y plus 4. Cool? Pretty easy. If we wanted this to be a 6, for example, we could do 6 here and 6 here, and we're good to go. I'll just swap this out. It should probably be called break 6 above now, but let's give it a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we will cast at the bottom. And, oh, my CAD spells are too weak to cast this. It requires more potency than I currently have. So, luckily, I think one of the things that's coming up next is Psi Metal Infusion. Hooray! This is incredibly easy to do. What I'm going to do is copy this to my clipboard for the moment. So let's do export to clipboard, done and done. And I'm going to get another spell programmer over here, just so I can remember this spell. So I'm going to import it in, we're good to go. So let's check out Psi Metal Infusion. It's very easy. All we need is a spell called, what's it called? Infusion. It doesn't require any inputs or parameters as far as I recall. Yep, that's it. Done deal. And then we need a spell bullet. Oh, right, I need to name it. Put it in our gun. And this works just like how we created the Psi Dust. However, we're going to need gold. Just drop a piece of gold on the ground and cast Infusion at it. Ta-da! So we leveled up and we got our Psi Metal Ingot. Very easy. This gives us all kinds of cool abilities, like the ability to create better stuff. One of the cool things we can make now is a spell drive, which, as I mentioned, is a way to store your spell. So if I were to shift right click on this over here, it basically stores the spell, break 4 above, see it's listed there in the tooltip, and then we can shift right click on this guy to paste it in. Nice! You can also shift right click in the air, and that will clear it. Cool. And now it's writable again. So let's get ourselves a new gun. One of the things we can get is a new Psi Metal CAD assembly. The upgraded ones require ebony and ivory. We're gonna go with the Psi Metal one for now. We can also get ourselves a new CAD core because this guy requires Psi Metal, this guy also. I think they all do. I don't know that Psi Gems are available to us just yet. So Psi Gems come from level 15, Greater Infusion. So we'll check those out in a bit. So let's go with what we have available to us now. So we can either have Complexity 18, Projection 3, or we can have Complexity 15, Projection 4, okay? So remember, the complexity is the number of actions you can have in there, and projection is the amount of tricks. So I'm gonna go with more tricks, I think, than, well, maybe more complexity. Yeah, that's probably the one we're gonna wanna go with. So let's do that. This will allow us to have 3 different tricks in the same spell. And then finally, we can choose to have more bandwidth and less sockets, or more sockets and less bandwidth. I'll go with this one because I'm swapping these out easily enough. So let's go ahead and throw this in here with these 2, and we've got ourselves a new CAD. Nice. We can remove the bullets from our old CAD and put them into the new one. And we should see that break 4 above now. By the way, you don't want to have more than one CAD on your player at a time, or basically things are not good for you. Notice that even though I have the CAD here, it doesn't have the Psi thing on the right. You can only have one CAD on your player at a time. But you'll notice now that I've got 250 potency available to me, so I have no problem casting this fancy new spell, which should break 6 above. Nice! How cool is that? I can also have larger explosions. So I'm just going to replace the break block sequence with the place block sequence, and pretty much it's going to work the same way. So starting position, target, and distance should be cool. So let's get another spellcaster. By the way, you might notice I have 6 slots available now because of my new CAD. Cool. So I can do place 4 above, and this is going to choose whatever block is to the right of the block, or the right of the CAD. So boom, 1, 2, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Neat. Very cool, right? So it took the block that we are there, and it cast and built up 6 blocks, so 5 in addition to this one that's here. Very cool. How neat is that, huh? And then you can, of course, break 4 above. Boom. All in one shot. So combinations of these spells can come up with some really creative stuff. So let's check out block movement. This gives us 2 abilities. One, move block, which pushes a block like a piston would. The other is collapse block, collapses a block as if it were sand. Let's give it a shot, shall we? So I'm going to clear out the board, and we're going to do move block, because that's the one that we need to do to upgrade. So we need a position and a target. So the position, I guess, would be the block that we want to move, right? So let's do the same thing that we did before, which is our lookup. So I just went and built the spell off camera. We've got trick, move block. So which block do we want to move? We're going to use the same thing we've used several times now. Vector ray cast of my entity position and my entity look vector. Basically, the block I'm looking at. Which direction do we want to move it in? The target direction is going to be a vector construct similar to what we did before, x0, z0, and y positive 1. If I constructed the spell correctly, I simply have to shoot at this block, and it'll move it up 1. How cool is that? Oh, I love it. That is neat. I'm curious, just for curiosity's sake, what happens if I made this vector 2? Let's see. Or I'll make it 3, just for fun. So you can only move blocks 1 block at a time, it looks like, but it's still kind of going up in the direction. So think of the vector, remember, positive y-axis would just basically be a direction that's basically straight up, right? So whether I made it 1 or 3, it's still the same direction. It can only move 1 at a time. Elemental arts sounds pretty cool. Let's check it out. So this allows you to manipulate the elements. Pretty cool, right? So you've got several options here. Smite, which calls down lightning at a given point. Blaze creates fire at a given point. Turret creates water at a given point. And Overgrow fertilizes blocks. Let's try and smite the nearest enemy to me. Does that sound like a cool spell? Let's see if I can make it. All right, if I did this right, the nearest spider within 6 blocks, or the nearest enemy within 6 blocks, should get lightning. Ha! How cool is that? You want to see how the spell works? I'm sure you do. So remember, when you cast it without a nearby entity, nothing exists, right? But pretty much the nearest enemy to me, so it should be this one. Oh, nice. They both got hit, but it's whichever's nearest is the one that actually gets hit with lightning. That is cool. So let's take a look at the spell. Trick Spite requires a position. So we're going to get the entity position of the nearest entity to a point, that point being the entity position of the caster. And the list of target entities will be the nearby enemies whose position is a connector that links to the entity position of the caster, and a radius of 6. So basically we're saying get a list of enemies near to the position of the caster. From that list, find the one that's closest to the caster and feed that to the entity position, which gets sent over to the Trick Smite. Pretty cool? I thought you might like that one, because I really think that's neat. And I can assume that your imagination can show you what Blaze is going to do: create fire at a given point, create water at a given point, Overgrow, which fertilizes a block at a given point. Should be pretty straightforward on how that works. And by the way, it looks like there's a new operator that we get. It outputs a number, and it can be a random number. So it can be between 0 and whatever number you give it. So that's pretty neat. On to the next thing, movement advances. Yeah, we want this one. So this access some new tricks. Blink. Cool. Blinks forward. You have to just tell it which entity and the distance, pretty much how far you want to blink. And then mass blink blinks everybody forward, aka an entity list. Cool. And then that's just blinking forward, right? And then finally we've got mass add motion to all entities in a target list. This one requires a vector. So instead of just giving it a list and how far to go, this one is give it a list, a vector, and how far to go. Vector being what direction to go, basically. And then mass exodus. Move all entities in target entity list to a target's position. Cool. Let's give a try of a cool spell. I'm going to do blink first, just so we can level up, and then I'm going to show you a neat one. So this is a pretty easy spell, right? We just say blink, which requires an entity. We'll use caster, and we'll say 4. Easy enough? Easy enough. So let's do this. And this, of course, will level me up. Nice. I like it. So let's try something fun. Trick, add motion. Mass add motion. Add motion to all entities in the target list. Cool. That target list will be nearby enemies. Cool. So that's the target. So all nearby entities. Nearby to who? Probably the player. Entity position of the caster. Cool. So position, target, and then we will say, let's say a 5-block radius. Cool. So that's set for that. Now what direction do we want them to do? Let's do the vector construct again. And again, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, just like we did before. And we will say like 8 on the Y-axis. Cool. And then speed can be 6. Nice. Oh, that is a high potency spell. Let's make this 4. All right, so I made the speed 2, and that falls within my potency range. So let's give this try a spell out. This guy. So what do you think this is going to do? Those of you who've really been paying attention should probably know what this is going to do, right? But let's give it a shot. Let's cast by. Cool. So as we get more potent spells, obviously, we could send them up a little bit higher. And of course, consider that if you only wanted to select one entity, you could definitely send them much higher, given, you know, the fact that it doesn't have to move all of them at once. So it would probably be a cheaper casting cost or potency cost. So remember we showed loop casting and it casts a spell multiple times? The new ability that we get with this is the loop cast index, which basically returns the number of executions that loop cast has cast. So the first time it casts, it would be 0, and the next time it would be 1, and then the next time it would be 2. We can use this to some neat effects. So guys, here's a nifty spell that you might have seen on the Forgecraft series. Let's go ahead and do this and try it out. Build wall loop. So remember, we're taking a look at the ability for a spell selector of loop cast index, which basically is the number of times the spell has been cast. We can use this to do something like so. Remember, this has to be the blocks on the right. Cool, that's right. We just cast a wall. Nice. How cool is that, huh? So how does this work? Let me try to explain it to you. So this spell's a little bit complex, probably the most complex one we've seen so far, and it involves a little bit of vector math, which I promised to cover in part 3, but let's explain it briefly. We're using the trick place block sequence, and similar to the previous one, our target, which is the direction we want to place it in, is the combination of 0, 0, and 6. 6 being the y-axis. That's why it placed 6 blocks above everything, right? Now normally before we would just cast it once and it would place 6 blocks above, but this time we wanted to use this loop cast index, right? So this is going to use operator vector sum, which adds 2 vectors together. So first we need to figure out the block to start placing on, right? It's going to be a sum of first 1 y level below the block I'm looking at. Remember when I placed it earlier and it placed 5 blocks above? This one starts 1 block below the block I'm looking at. Pretty cool, right? So it combines the vector array construct here, which is y minus 1, so 1 block below, the entity position. So instead of starting with where I'm looking, it starts with my current position. So it combines my current position, y minus 1, and then it does one more addition, which is the vector multiply. So this is going to be covered in the vectors section, but basically we're taking the loop cast index and adding 1 to it. So we start 1 block in front of us instead of on us. And then we're taking our entity axial look. Similar to the look vector, the axial look has to be aligned to an axis. So it has to be always just straightforward on the X, straightforward on the Z, instead of possibly at an angle or a corner, right? And then the target of that is caster. So basically we're saying we want to place a block starting at my position, one block below, and then we want to add to that a vector multiply of the loop cast index, basically how many times the spell is cast, in addition to this. So if you guys think of it like programming, it's almost like a for loop, right? We start with position 0, and then we add 1 to it just to start at position 1. The first time the spell casts, it places the wall here, 6 blocks above. The next time it places it here. The next time it places it here. That loop cast index keeps increasing it, so that when we cast the spell, it does this. Ta-da! How cool is that? And you'll notice that it, casts multiple times. Pretty neat stuff, right? So the next chapter, really not too hard. Trick Greater Infusion infuses diamonds into Psi gems. Shouldn't be too hard. The other one is Ebony and Ivory. It will turn coal and quartz into ebony and ivory, respectively. However, it must be used in the end. So if you want to get those fancy cool things, you gotta go to the end. Sorry, guys. But that's how you get ebony and ivory for some fancier pistols. We'll go ahead and learn this ability, and I'm going to quickly get Greater Infusion here so we can... I'm going to export this to the clipboard. Or you know what? I'll use a spell drive. And remember, you can store your spell drives in a chest. Pretty cool way to save some favorite spells that you've made, right? So let's do Greater Infusion and get our spell drive. We'll replace by. We'll do Great Infuse. Cool. And we'll remove Smite Nearest and pull that in. And then technically you don't even have to drop a diamond on the ground. You just have to cast the spell. See? Cool, right? Definitely used a lot of Psi energy there, so be careful when casting that. But just to demonstrate that you can get your Psi diamonds this way, once my thing fills up there because I don't want to die. Cool. Psi diamond. Now we're getting to some cool stuff. Positive effects. Guess what this does? Spell potion effects. Trick speed, trick haste, trick strength, trick boost, all that kind of cool stuff, right? So let's give it a shot because it sounds pretty easy. All we need to do for this, trick speed, let's try it out. Speed requires a target, a power, and a time. Seems easy enough. So let's say the target will be the caster, right? Sure, I want to be the one to get the speed boost. The power can be a constant, and the time can be a constant. We'll make the power 2 and the time 3. How's that sound? Power 2, time 3. That's not bad. Not bad at all. And I guess as you upgrade these, it will cost more potency, right? So if I made it 3 and 4, yeah. Definitely the power level is going to be a huge modifier here. But let's try it out. So we're going to take Smite Nearest. We're going to call this... speed. Ta-da! And we'll replace the build wall loop. Sure, why not? Speed. Nice, look at that. Speed 3. So I guess that timer is in seconds, so that's why it doesn't sound too bad. So if we made this like 15, for example. Yeah, that's a little bit high. What if we made this 10? Must be multiplying this. Yeah. So I could have speed 2 for 10 seconds. That seems cool. And I think it's pretty obvious what the rest of these things will do. Very neat. So tool casting. This is new to me. Let's check it out. So tool casting is really neat. Let's check it out. I'm going to do selector block broken. So there are some tools inside that you can craft, and you can insert spells into the tools and have those spells execute under certain conditions. How cool is that? So let's say that we wanted to do, remember that break 4 above spell? Yeah, that was cool, right? Do I still have the spell drive for that? I do. Let's paste it into here. Nice. And instead of saying we want to break the block above where I'm looking, we're going to use the new spell trick that we got, which is selector block broken. Cool. So I'll put block broken here, selector block broken, and that should be cool. So we'll call this break 6 above broken. So we got that covered, right? And we'll take our dispel here. break 6 above, block broken. We can place our Psi Metal pickaxe into the CAD assembler, which by the way is just made with Psi Metal and Psi Gems, and you place your spell in there. Now the pickaxe you can use just like your CAD and choose break 6 above broken. So what this should do, if I've done things correctly, is when I break a block with the pickaxe, haha, it broke the blocks above. Basically, it cast the spell when I did the thing. So I broke a block with a pickaxe, and it cast the spell that was selected. Notice that there are 4 slots here, by the way, as opposed to the 3 that are in here. This is so that you can disable the spell if you want. So like basically you choose one that you don't want, and then your break above will not kick in, right? But if you do have that thing placed, cool. Very neat. Make sure it's selected. Quick demonstration. Break block sequence. Selector is block broken. Vector raycast. The Y is the 6. We will select this thing. It worked that time. It worked that time. It didn't work that time. Worked that time. See, sometimes it works and sometimes it's not. You want to hit anything you hit with a sword with lightning, trick Smite, entity position, selector, attack target. And of course you're going to need a Psi Metal sword. Boom and boom. Let's give this guy a try. Oh yeah, that's what's up. Though to be fair, it may be smarter to go ahead and put some negative effects on your swords. So obviously you could cast it at the targets or you could put it on your sword, either way. But you've got Trick Wither. Applies the withering effect, applies a slowness, weakness, or sets an entity on fire. Cool. Let's do Trick Wither. So we're just going to change this to Trick Wither. And of course, we need to pass it a target entity instead of a position. So we'll change this to attack target. Cool. And power and time. So let's make it power and time. Power will be 2 and time will be 3. That sound cool? Hopefully that works. Nope, too powerful. Let's make it power 1. Obviously, if I got a better gun, that wouldn't be a problem. So let's get a new spell bullet. And we should name this thing Wither Target. Cast Wither Target on anything that I hit. Ready? Look, he's got the withering effect. Cool. I like it. So, by the way, I just made that into a spell. Pretty cool. Definitely withering this thing. Awesome. And that leveled me up, because you need to make it into a spell to level up. Last, Eidos Manipulation. Cool. This trick, Eidos Reversal, takes the caster back in time. Ooh, I want to try that. And Eidos Anchor returns the caster to current position after target time. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Let's give it a try, shall we? So these two spells seem like they do similar things. Takes the caster back in time, or returns the caster to the current position after a set time. I've gone ahead and set these spells up to do the following. So let's take a look at Reversal first. Eidos Reversal will kind of rewind time and put the caster back where he was X number of seconds ago. In this case, we did 4. So I'm going to run forward here, and then I'm going to cast the spell. Ta-da! I got zipped backwards in time, basically at double speed. Pretty neat, right? Oh, that is neat. Then we can take a look at Anchor. What this does is it anchors the player in the world, and after X number of seconds, again 4, it's just going to teleport me back there regardless of where I am. Zoom. Oh, that is neat. That is very neat. So I'll just cast it right here next to this thing, and 4 seconds later, zoom, teleported right back. Nice. How cool is that? I like it. And with that, guys, I think we're ready to wrap up part 2 2 of the Psi Spotlight. Like I said, we're going to come back in part 3, and I'm going to explain vector math to you guys as best as I can. Step 1, learn vector math. Step 2, hopefully be able to explain it to you guys in a comprehensive and comparable manner. But there's a lot of cool things you can do if you really understand how the vectors work and how all the different spells work. But if you're not a big fan of understanding all that and you just want to do some really cool things like breaking blocks, I think you should be able to understand the basics that I taught you in episodes 1 and 2 here to create some really cool spells. But you can create some even cooler spells if you understand what's going on in part 3. My recommendation to you, play with Psi using what you've learned in parts 1 and 2. Definitely get a feel for it. I like the fact that it's some of the really cool effects, like the time reversal thing, and the withering effects, and the positive effects, and the breaking of blocks, all that stuff is pretty easy to do and doesn't require a lot of complex stuff. But like I said, you can do even cooler things if we get into part 3. So play with it, go through parts 1 and 2, get a feel for the mod, create some really cool abilities and some really cool effects, and then come back for part 3. What I think I'll do is explain vector math, but also to keep it interesting, I'm going to show off some cool spells that some people in the community have made. So I'm going to ask Vasky to show me a list of cool spells that people have made, and hopefully that will lead to showing you guys some of the really neat potential. I think the wall builder was really like a, whoa, that's neat, right? And if you guys have watched my Forgecraft series, you'll know that there's a 9x9 building spell. It literally, like, you cast it once and it builds a 9x9 with whatever block is to the right of your caster. Pretty cool. So we might check that out in part 3 as well. For now, Direwolf20 signing off. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Take it easy.